Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about meta trends in Puzzle and Dragons. So, meta can often be thought of as an abbreviation for most efficient team available, and is essentially an umbrella term to indicate whether or not a card or monster is viable in this current day and age. Essentially, if you say something is meta, it means that it is currently top tier or very viable, very powerful at this moment. It's ranked highly compared to its peers, and another thing to keep in mind is that the meta is always flowing and changing. What is strong, say, right now, most likely will have declined at some point in the future. Maybe it'll spring back up, because Gung-Ho at least does have a nice tendency to kind of recycle older cards. Like, they kind of go through dips and flows for the most part. Like, something was top tier a couple of years ago, sinks down, new evolutions, great again, back down again, back up again. You get the general idea. So what I'm doing with this article / video is just kind of give you an insight of what the meta is right now and what I feel like could be possible future trends moving forward. So, first things first, Puzzle and Dragons is a puzzling game at heart, because basically no matter how long or how much Puzzle and Dragons tries to change or develop, it's still going to be revolving around the core gameplay principle of a match 3 style game. Obviously, it's a lot more diverse and complex compared to other titles out there, and that's what probably makes pads so enjoyable, because even though it can sometimes be thought of as repetitive, the fact that there's so much diversity in terms of mechanics, leader skills, activation requirements keeps players coming back for more. Furthermore, it's always a challenge to a certain extent. New matching patterns obviously force us to think in new ways, but the thing is, you have to try and match under pressure, and that is still a skill involved. I could give like a dream team that's able to beat hard dungeons to a brand new person, and they will fail miserably because they lack the actual puzzling skills required to clear the dungeon. So that is quite a nice aspect for the game, because there's a large skill component, which is not necessarily that common in most games nowadays, especially for the mobile industry. A lot of them are more just like time-based games, patience, etc. This game, there's a lot more active gameplay by comparison. However, there are obviously only so many twists you can put onto matching styles and leader skills, so there is to a certain degree of recycling that occurs with matching playstyles. We've seen TPAs become strong at one point, then it was Rose, and then it kind of declined, maybe some rainbow teams. Rose came back again a little bit more. You get the idea. They kind of go through ebbs and flows as they make certain playstyles more desirable. So what is strong at this point in time? So right now, in this day and age, combo-oriented teams combined with 7x6 boards are the most powerful or efficient teams that are available to play through endgame content. And this is because we not only have rapid scaling multiplier leaders that we can apply to, but we also can seamlessly pair them with Diablos for these 7x6 boards. Furthermore, 7 combo awakenings provide the most consistent damage output for a card. And a lot of cards are starting to now see 2, and maybe in the future if we get Ideal, they'll have 3 7 combo awakenings. And that is huge, because basically you're just matching a board. You're not having to make any special weird pattern, and you're basically able to deal massive amounts of damage. Furthermore, 7 combo awakenings don't actually, I'm going to explain that in a moment actually, but in addition to like the whole 7x6, 7 combo-oriented teams, there has been the rise of kind of 2 combo teams, because leaders such as Yogg and Cammy are basically able to deal outrageously high amounts of damage with only 2 combos potentially. Obviously, they have a lot more skill involved than just 2 combo playstyle, because you're not going to have those orbs fall back down afterwards. So you basically need to still combo the whole board, but you have the option to basically make few combos and deal massive amounts of damage for basic farming purposes for challenging content like Cosmic Trinity Annihilation. So while these 2 playstyles are different, they're both very powerful and potent in this day and age, because we have the combo-oriented teams for a lot of the hard challenges. But again, we can still use Yogg and Cammy for shorter dungeons, because you can intelligently plan out their active skill usage to basically deal massive amounts of damage. So why is 7 combo so strong? And the reason why 7 combo awakening is the most universally strong awakening from a damage output point of view is because it requires no additional thought per se, no alteration to your matching play style. You are just simply matching throughout the board and basically comboing up. You don't have to jeopardize or risk a combo to, say, match a TPA or a Connect 5 or a row. And that's important, because from a given board, we have 7.5 combos on a 6x5 board. So that means you're going to have either 7 or 8 for the most of the time. And 7 is something you should be able to do every single time if you're proficient enough. The board will give you at least 7 combos. And that means your cards are able to deal those spectacular high amounts of burst damage. And that is important because let's say if your team was TPA oriented, well, not only do you have to potentially lose a combo because you have to stick in a TPA. So if you had, say, 6 orbs and you have to match a TPA, you only get 1 combo instead of 2. And that could definitely lower the combo count down. And you have to also remember that every single combo match is adding 25% damage to every member on your team. Furthermore, TPA tends to be a lot more lackluster because it only benefits that card. No one else is necessarily benefiting as much, and because you have to alter your matching style, your board might have less combos overall. You're going to be doing possibly less damage for the most part. And that's why 7 combo is so amazing at this point in time. So, while 7 combos are obviously very strong and powerful, another very desirable option for damage enhancement from Awakenings is Killers, because Killers provide 3 times damage. Killer Latents provide another layer of damage augmentation as well, so they can obviously stack with each other. But Killers are obviously much more restrictive and narrowly focused. They're great at dealing with certain spawns if you have multiple ones, especially you can blow through them with like 9 times or even 25 times if you're, or sorry, 27 times if you're very lucky. But the thing is, 7 combo is always going to be helpful. Basically, if you have, say, a team of, say, Blue Hunter and lots of 7 combo sub cards, it doesn't necessarily matter what color they are. You just match every single board and you kind of just push through the dungeon. And that's why I feel that the combo meta is taking off, because they can have consistency. They don't have to worry about combo shields. They can use follow-up attack pretty seamlessly because it only takes up a portion of the board and you have enough left over to combo to your heart's content. So, why are Yogg and Cammy viable? Because even though they are health conditional leaders that need to have themselves above 80%, their sheer damage output is so amazing. Furthermore, they both have healing based active skills. They can basically restore a portion of their health in order to basically gain back that 80% threshold for maximum damage output. But because they can do so much damage with so little matching potentially, it gives great farming potential, especially in shorter dungeons. In shorter dungeons like Cosmic Trinity, where you have basically 3 teams of players, you could potentially go through every single floor one at a time, and you basically only have to take 2 to 3 turns depending on which person you were. And because of that, you can basically just budget all your active skills to counter every single spawn. You don't have to really worry about them so much. You just use actives, blow up, kill it. It's actually very consistent because if you think about it, you use an orb changer or board changer to make enough light or dark orbs respectively. You can just match them and they're going to kill. Like I use Inahime and Oichi and Nene, and they're working very well. They're obviously a little more challenging to use by comparison and not as efficient, but the general principles is there. I use orb changers, I kill a full art. It's consistent, I don't have to think, and that is important for the most part. Because a lot of the game in Puzzle & Dragons is finding ways to become as efficient as possible for farming various content. So Yogg and Cammy does help take a lot of that extra thinking out of the equation because it's very fast, very powerful, and quite consistent when you can plan things out. So trends right now. So damage control is definitely a thing of the past because let's say even just 1 year ago actually, damage control was one of the more delicate skills a player could refine and gain because we had none of these crazy awakenings or active skills to counter out various resolve, absorption, and damage void spawns. However, we now have counters to all of these, and while this does make your life easier and you don't really ever want to go back to trying to figure out damage control against certain spawns, I feel it can be a little problematic because bosses are going to get to the point where they have too many mechanics, and if you don't have these specific counters, no amount of player skill is going to really help you get through, because if you don't have these counters, you're going to have such a bad time. So right now we have counters to resolves. So resolves used to be a very dangerous mechanic because you had to basically employ damage control. You either had to control your damage to the point where you could just tease them underneath the resolve threshold, or you had to bring gravities to directly push them down right away. So with that in mind, we don't need those anymore because now we have follow-up attack. And follow-up attack is an awakening, which means you don't have to dedicate an active skill slot to it. You could use a board changer, but that board changer is probably used to kill the spawn anyway, so you're kind of just effectively killing 2 birds with 1 magic stone, so to speak. And that is amazing because basically you have to slightly alter your matching playstyle, but you have a guaranteed way to kill resolve spawns. Nowadays, I don't even blink when I see resolve spawns. I'm just thinking, oh, I have follow-up attack. Whoop-de-doo, it's going to die anyways. So this is a very important point to consider because now we have probably the most easy and universally accessible awakening. We just have the farmable Rushna, I think I'm saying it right, maybe I'm not. We have all those Verdandis, we have all the Norns, we have all the Dragonbounds like Saria, Ryune, Sylvie. There's lots of options for follow-up attack now, so you're more than likely to have at least one option in your box, so you can counter all resolves with that card. They don't even need to actually have their color matched. They just need the follow-up attack column, and they do the 1 damage anyways. Counters to absorbs. So basically with Fujin and her various spin-offs, players basically have the ability to ignore any absorption mechanics. So spawns that used to be dangerous like Sopdet, Hera Dragon, and Vishnu, and the Salad Dick in Machine Hair, I don't know its name, but it's the blue dragon. Basically, those spawns are challenging and problematic, but with Fujin, you can just breeze right through them. You don't have to think, you just match the board and burst right through, and it makes farming that much more efficient. Like when I was playing Russian Descended, I need to bring a team obviously that has good damage output, and if you have damage control, you may not have enough damage to deal with the later floors, so on and so forth. So if you didn't have Fujin, you had to solve for 99 turns on Parvati. No one likes that. But the point being is, Fujin just makes your life so much easier. Right now, for the most part, absorption bosses can be dealt with current options, but Fujin just makes your life easier. And once you've tasted Fujin, you really don't want to go back to being some sort of person who actually has to think. Counters to voids or damage voids. So damage voids differ from absorbs because damage voids will simply reduce the incoming damage down to 0 when passing a certain threshold. Absorbs heal them back up. So absorbs are a lot more problematic for the most part. But with voids, they can be problematic as well. However, we now have these pixel evolutions with these box awakenings. And these box awakenings allow that specific card, basically the card that owns the box awakening, to punch through and deal all of the damage needed, hopefully, to one-shot that spawn. Because the box awakening requires you to match a 3x3 box of that color, and that particular monster will gain a damage boost and basically penetration through the damage void shield. So obviously it may be challenging. You think, well, one person has to one-shot something with like 100 million health, but with outrageously high scaling multipliers along with Gemstone, Spike, or the Wise Dragons, it's a lot more doable than you may think. So you're able to actually punch through for amazing amounts of damage with that one card. Obviously having 2 pixels makes your life easier, but the point of the matter is we now have a very efficient way to counter out damage voids with pixel awakenings, as well as the fact that some fireballs have now gained pixel awakenings of their own, so you now have another option for punching through these void spawns. So implications moving forward. So I feel that most to all the current boss spawns can be dealt without Fujin or Box Awakenings. We're still able to puzzle our way through, but it's going to be getting to the point, I feel, to a certain extent, that maybe bosses get too complex that if we don't have these specific counters, you can't really progress or function without it. Furthermore, if they keep doing like a lot of farming dungeons that need like Fujin counters, it prevents a lot of efficient farming if you're not a fortunate individual to have those active skills at your disposal. So it can be annoying. It's making your life easier, but I don't want to get to the point where it's going to become like the only option available. Like the most recent challenge dungeons where we had the Red Athena as the boss, you can definitely grind your way through it, but only certain strong teams are able to do so, which I guess is okay, but if you have Box Awakenings, you could have potentially one-shot her with your pixel evolution. So if we get to the point where things get too hard and too wonky, it's going to be problematic in my opinion. However, another thing that we have to keep in mind is that Japan obviously has nicer toys than we do, and we will be gaining, hopefully, the Dragonbound Rare Machine, which basically can grant cards that have basically up to 3 killers or 7 combo awakenings. So those cards are able to deal outrageously high amounts of damage and be very specialized in what they do. And it's my hope that these cards come soon because they're going to definitely add a massive boost of power to our monster box and our potential to clear endgame content. So these are foreseeable trends that I think may happen. They're not confirmed. Japan doesn't have these yet either, but it's basically just me speculating as to what could be the next meta shift, say 6 months from now, because Japan's only 3 months ahead of us. I'm just looking even further into the future. Because one thing I want to draw attention to is that row-based teams were popular at one point in time. They've gone up and down over time, and now they're at relatively an all-time low because we don't have easy ways to deal with resolve, because resolve spawns are becoming so common nowadays, and row teams can't match a column of hard orbs because they don't get the row. So what is starting to happen nowadays is that Super Follow-Up Attack Awakening is on Halloween Nene. Will eventually come, hopefully, to more cards in the future. But with Super Follow-Up Attack Awakening, it allows row-based teams to actually deal amazing amounts of damage because they could still match the row, but they also have a way to counter resolves without having to do damage control or gravities. And that's important because, to a certain extent, a lot of row-based teams scale from connected orbs. And a box they have to form for the super follow-up attack is 9 connected orbs. So that will trigger their maximum multiplier. For instance, Mary is one of my favorite leaders to use for a long period of time. But yes, she has damage control, but being able to deal with resolve spawns would be nicer. So I basically can connect the bloblet of 9 so I get my maximum multiplier and a row up top, and boom, explosive amounts of damage counter the resolve at the same time. If cards start gaining this new awakening that are more commonly accessible, not just 8-star collab cards. So this is going to be, I think, a trend that's going to happen because we're kind of seeing a shift to a certain extent a little away from combos of Yogg and Cammy, in that we're basically able to deal massive amounts of damage with basically monocolored teams without combos. So it wouldn't surprise me if row-based teams make a comeback. And in order to make row-based teams viable, they need to have defensive multipliers that basically allow them to stay alive. Because that's the big problem right now. They're orb hungry by nature, and combo-based teams can just blast through any given board for the most part. Row-based teams need to have at least those 6 desirable orbs, so that is challenging to have. So unless they start gaining like large amounts of defensive multipliers to kind of tank or stall out certain spawns, it's going to be hard for row-based teams to make a comeback. But again, things can change. I could be completely wrong for the most part. So for all I know, it could be poison crosses, which I really hope doesn't happen because that would be terrifying. So in conclusion, Puzzle & Dragons is a very diverse and complex game that basically tends to cycle back and forth between various matching styles because there's only so much you can really do from a match 3 style game. Puzzle & Dragons definitely has the most types of mechanics available for this genre, and it's exciting because they're at least trying to introduce new mechanics, and hopefully they remain fun and exciting moving forward. So what do you think about like this whole cyclic meta overall, as along with what you feel will be strong moving forward, say 6 months in the future? Hopefully you all have a mantastic day. Wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.